as a real world, like insurance policy, it is not real. It's not going to happen. It's a troubling text in that way that it really forces us to confront human nature and the predicament and the problems that we're in. It's obviously not a bad movie. It is a good movie. And in the very sense of what we're doing right now, this movie reveals what it means to be human in this present moment.
Let's talk about Interstellar. I'm pretty sure a lot of our listeners have seen this movie, but maybe not everybody. But tell me about why you first fell in love with it and what captured you with this movie.
Yeah, well, first I'll say I feel like this movie is like a universal sacred text, right? Like,
For sure.
I know that TikTok and social media just is algorithmic, so it feeds you more of what you like or whatever. But I feel like I see stuff about Interstellar all the time. That Christopher Nolan as a director has made a lot of good movies that really strike chords with people. You know, that he's an auteur. He's not necessarily a director. He's old school Hollywood. Like, he's got such his own style. I think Interstellar is a movie that hit everyone differently than any other movie that he's made. And I think that it is a universal sacred text in a way that most movies aren't.
Yeah.
This movie came out in, I think, 2015. So I was a
2014,
student.
yeah.
2014. I was a student, just becoming a student then. I had just come back from my mission. You know, I don't know. I was just kind of hopped up on, we're still explorers and we need to push boundaries. And I just loved it. And it was also during the time where I was really kind of coming into like why I love movies and understanding the difference between film and IMAX and digital and practical kind of stuff, and really understanding that. And so this movie was a great showcase of a lot of those different aspects of like why I really fell in love with cinema as like an art form. And I think this was probably, I don't know, what did Nolan do before this? The Dark Knight trilogy?
Dark Knight Rises was 2012. This was 2014. So 2 years after Batman and 4 years after Inception.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm also just probably a couple of years off being a missionary too. And the film, I think, is uniquely spiritual in its writing and its editing and its subject matter and especially its soundtrack. Like, I think Hans Zimmer doing the soundtrack on organs is a very implied spirituality / religiosity to it, because our cultural association with organs is chapels and churches.
Yeah.
And so to background the entire movie with an organ soundtrack is to cue the audience in that this is a religious / spiritual movie. And so clearly to me, like, this is an important film culturally, not just for me, but culturally, I think it's an important film. And especially with this last rewatch, I think it's kind of like Job, where it's like, it's a troubling text that forces us to wrestle with what it means to be human. And that's kind of like why I gravitate to this movie so much. And freak, dude, I love IMAX. I love big format. I love the spectacle, and Christopher Nolan does it so well. And like, as a sci-fi movie, it's very grounded. Kind of in a weird, like, fifth dimensional being sort of way.
Groundedly mystical. Yeah. So I know a few people who don't like this movie. And one of them specifically calls out, he goes, it's just too much space. It's too much space. It's too loud. It's just too much in your face space. I don't agree with that, but I can understand their position. I have another who we both know who says it's part of a whole canon of frustratingly loud sound designy space movies that don't have enough story. I also disagree with that.
Don't have enough story? Like, what?
Yeah. I understand that the sound design can be off to some people. But to your point, this feels like our generation or one generation younger than us. It feels like they're 2001. The movie, like when someone goes to the movies and they saw this movie as a kid, oh my gosh, they go as a teenager. Oh my gosh, they go in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I think even all the generations older than us also love this movie because it's just so magnificent and well done. And the special effects are beautiful. And there's a lot of practical done. You can kind of tell between the ship and things. Of course, this is like the ultimate film bro movie if you're a little smarter than the Fight Club boys. It's the ultimate movie that the number of TikToks out there, I know you sent a bunch to me, but I saw more afterwards. The number of boys who are going to explain to their girlfriends or partners every little detail of this movie.
Yeah.
It's like Lord of the Rings. I sat there just biting my tongue, being like, no, don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. Okay, do you know how the score was created? No. Yes. Every tidbit you could possibly share has to be shared. So we won't do it on this podcast. There's just too much of that we could go into, because when you have an emotional reaction to a life-changing movie, you have to know every damn thing about it.
Yes.
So I can understand why some people don't like it, because it may feel cool and counterculture to not, but it's time, Shut up.
It's time.
We're over hating Coldplay too. Just get back to it. Love this movie. It's just so good.
Yeah. All of that being said, I have gripes with it.
Oh, let's hear some gripes.
I have some gripes with it. So let me preface my gripes by giving a metaphor, right? So imagine you're with your wife and you're in New York, and this is pre 9/11. So you take a picture with your wife in front of the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
That picture holds special meaning to you, and it has a meaning in its context, in its situated place and time. Then 9/11 happens. That picture then takes on an additional added sense of meaning.
Yes.
That doesn't remove or detract from the original sense of meaning that was had in that picture. But because of history and the workings of culture, that picture takes on much more meaning and significance. My relationship with this movie is like that. In that, my gripes have developed over the last 10 years. Granted, it's only a 10-year-old movie. My gripes have really only developed over the last 5 years, maybe. Okay. I think this movie is kind of cynical about ecological disaster.
Yeah.
Maybe a little too cynical. I don't know how responsible it is to tell stories where the goal is to leave Earth because we broke it so bad. And I say that because in the world that we actually live in, it will always be easier and cheaper to fix what we have done to the Earth than it is to terraform Mars. Full stop.
Yep.
And this whole tech bro fallacy that we are going, I'm looking at you, Elon Musk, that we are going to build our way out of this, and that we're going to move humanity from the Earth to another planet and then terraform that planet. And that's going to be our way out of this, out of climate change and ecological disaster, is lunacy, because that is not a real option. That is a sci-fi option. That is an option for 500 years down the line, but we got to get to 500 years down the line so that we can even have that as an option. Elon, I read an article that Elon Musk thinks that he's going to die on the coast of Mars. What an insane, literally insane, pathological mentality to be in.
Yeah.
And this movie feeds into that ethos of the Earth has been literally, Dr. Brand is like, oh, the Earth has been telling us to go for some time now, and it's time that we listen. And I'm just like, no, I hard disagree on that.
Yeah.
Coop saying we're not meant to save the world, we're meant to leave it. I fully big time hard disagree. And I think that it is irresponsible to tell stories like this now, because movies have such an intense, especially movies like this, of scope and scale and power and majesty and awe, have such a powerful impact on our imaginations as humans, in our ability to imagine future and the potential future. It's like Tomorrowland, where, the guys you guys have been broadcasting the apocalypse into your minds for decades. Of course the world's going to end. You can't imagine in any other scenario. And so that is one of my gripes about this movie, is that I think it is very cynical about our ecological predicament. And I think that when it first came out in 2014, this was pre-Trump. This was still in the Obama years. Yeah. And it honestly, during that time, it was more hopeful that we were going to be able to do something about climate change. The Paris Accords had just gone through. It felt like something that we were going to figure it out. But then after the first Trump administration, and then a Biden administration, we were just treading water. And then a second Trump administration, it feels more hopeless these days that we're going to be able to figure out something to do with climate change in a productive way. And that's probably, my presentism, right? I can't imagine a future that I can't imagine. Yeah. And I think that what we really need stories coming out of Hollywood, the engine of imagination and of awe, to show us that there's a pathway through this, that it isn't us leaving the planet. And that's my gripe.
That's a good gripe to have and a good point. I was just thinking about Chris Nolan's politics through his movies, because he tries to remain apolitical, he says, at times, but other times you're like, is there? And it would be interesting to draw connections between his films and where he's at and what the world looks like, knowing that he lives in the UK, which is a little bit different than here, but not terribly different. We seem to kind of follow each other on our political ups and downs. Knowing that 2014 was 2 years before Brexit and that whole situation in the UK and what was going on there, it does make me wonder. I felt like through The Dark Knight Rises and some of Dark Knight movies, he may have been a little more right-wing or a little more right-leaning in some of his beliefs. Maybe this is pointing to a similar, it's a system of beliefs that he has. I agree with you. In my eyes, watching it, it would have been better if he was exploring for exploring's sake. But I know it would have lost the have to save your daughter situation. Because, like you're saying, it feels asinine and silly to believe. And they even mentioned so many times in the movies of, our Earth, we're never going to find another like her. And then you have Dr. Brand being like, well, we've got 7 others we hope are like her. No. If we ruin the first one, what are we doing on the next one? We haven't learned any lessons. Anyway.
Well, I mean, that's why I think this movie is it's like Job in the Bible is a very troubling text. It is not meant to make you feel good. It doesn't even... it's a theodicy. I mean, I don't think Interstellar is a theodicy, and a theodicy for the audience it's a defense of the goodness of things in the face of evil, or like, how can a good God exist when evil exists?
Yeah.
And so that's what Job is. Job is a theodicy. It's wrestling with the problem of evil. And in some way, Interstellar is a wrestling with the problem of evil, right? Because I think it does kind of take that, just like you said, where we're not going to find an Earth like it. What makes you think that we're just going to go out and find another planet and that we're not going to re-inflict all of the same problems that we had here, but only there? Because, they even call that out where, Anne Hathaway's character, Dr. Brand, is Amelia Brand, says, that's what's so great about what we're doing is, we're going to face, nature is full of difficulty and hardship, but not evil. We're not going to face evil out here. And then Coop says, so it's just what we bring with us, right? Which is honestly so insightful, such great foreshadowing, and absolutely so true. Because, if you were to take the cynical nature of this story and project it into the future, you'd get a bunch of humans who didn't learn their lesson on Earth, who are going to go to another planet and didn't learn their lesson, and they're going to break the planet there as well. And so it is literally what we take with us, which is that human nature is something that we need to fundamentally work on here, because it doesn't matter what the setting, the context is. If we're bringing human nature with us and we haven't refined our character and our human nature, we're going to be taking our problems with us wherever we go.
Yeah, I wonder what a good ending to the cynical exploration trilogy would be. This, Starship Troopers, and there's got to be a third that kind of points out that, like you're saying, humanity might be the problem if we can't fix our own issues. That it's not so much about finding a new home. It's that grass is greener / I'll be different when we move, Yeah. I'll be different when we move. And I will say, watching it this time, this is probably the first time I've felt how dystopian the ending feels, even though the motifs of the score and the excitement of how quick everything moving says otherwise. Because you have his fake farmhouse with the guy being like, Cooper loved farming. No, he didn't. Everything about it's fake and plastic and hearkening back to real. And you have the fake sun he's looking at, and the whole place is twisted. They're playing baseball, but gravity's off, so it's going through someone's window. Everything about it is this trying to get back what we had, but it's somewhere else, and it's temporary. And that feels dystopian at points.
Actually, it does. Now that I'm thinking about that final scene, because that final scene kind of has the air of like, oh my gosh, we made it, we can breathe now. When in reality, it is kind of dystopic. It's taking like a facsimile of what the good life is here on Earth actively. And it's a facsimile. It's a false illusion of what it actually is. And that is kind of dystopian.
And then to cut to Dr. Brand on her planet alone, ready for the long nap. She's tearful. She's all out there alone, knowing she has to get enough data and then bed down and just hope that Cooper gets there before a storm, life and time runs out, whatever, power, anything goes wrong with her ship. He's getting in the ship and he's excited. I'm going to go explore again. Okay, my daughter that I left behind has done everything fine. I'm good to go fuck off again and go try and find Brand. Knowing that he had a whole team of people last time to help him when the ship went wrong or whatever else. Now it's just he and Tars fucking off to the black hole again. I felt less optimistic this time than I have before, where I was like, oh, this doesn't look like it's going to end well. If we had Interstellar 1.5, it could be 30 minutes of, oh no, Tars, I couldn't get the controls. Boom, he's knocked out. Oh, he's done. And Brand dies alone. Like that's a little bit how it felt to me. And I specifically think of the beginning of the movie, they're showing all those interviews, which are actual real people talking about the Dust Bowl that Chris Nolan repurposes for his movie, right? Because it's the same thing he's showing. Now, studying and loving the Dust Bowl history, when I took that class in college, I was like, oh my God, how have I never heard of this? The whole point of the Dust Bowl and the whole way we got out of it was FDR and the scientists working under him were like, this is catastrophic. We have to fix it immediately and put tons of money and resources into fixing the planet, fixing the Earth right where it was having a problem. Planting trees, everything else. They're like, okay, no, we're going to give farming resources here. You're going to move. We're going to give you homesteading. They did everything they could to save the country from a continued natural disaster. And like you're saying, it's funny that Nolan's like, well, instead of that, what if we just left? What if we just left and older Dr. Brand's like, they're meant to die. Do not go gently into that night. All right, there's a few people that have survived. The rest of us are meant to die.
Yeah, that's why I don't know how I feel about the explorer archetype being so valorized in the narrative.
Yeah.
Because he kind of denigrates, here we are, we're just caretakers. We're not supposed to be like caretakers. We're supposed to be explorers. We're supposed to be pioneers. And like, bullshit. We are absolutely caretakers.
Yeah.
Like, to think anything else is insanity. Yeah. And if you, dear audience members, please read some environmental texts. Oh my gosh, read like Braiding Sweetgrass, read, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, read Wendell Berry. Like, the human ethos spirit is about caretaking because there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
But here, while we can be pioneers, and there is a way of being pioneers and explorers while we're here, we're absolutely caretakers of this planet because there's nowhere else to go. And if we fuck it up here, we fuck it up. And because we're not technologically capable of evacuating our civilization to another world, because unless we forget, there's the Deus. I mean, okay, to be fair, I'm going to say some great things about this movie here in about 5 minutes, but lest we forget that in the narrative, the entire civilization is saved by a deus ex machina of a fifth dimensional human race in the far future, putting a wormhole in the middle of their solar system.
Yeah.
That is a, as a storytelling device, beautiful. I love it. Fantastic. As a real world, like insurance policy, it is not real. It's not going to happen. Yeah. So I'm just like, it's a troubling text in that way that it really forces us to confront like human nature and the predicament and the problems that we're in. It's obviously not a bad movie. Yeah. It is a good movie. And in the very sense of what we're doing right now, this movie reveals what it means to be human in this present moment. And so in that sense of when I first watched this movie and first fell in love with it, it meant one thing to me, but over time it is grown to mean something different for me. And I still love the movie, but I love the movie because it highlights what not to do.
It's interesting.
By not being, it shows me what it is.
By not being it. Yeah. When the Holy Grail suddenly looks like just like a cup, it's a little different, but it still means something. Yeah. Cooper feels Thomas of trying to fix the incurable, which is find another planet like Earth. That's not the fix he should be working on. And it's a lack of presentism because he's lost in talking about love and sacrifice. He's lost any real time with his kids, especially his daughter. Yeah. And absolutely. all he gets with her is her video message, one that she sends, and then a few minutes before he leaves to go find Bran at the end. That's it. Okay.
Yeah, what a monstrous sacrifice that is. And, the movie, I think the movie kind of portrays that sacrifice as having been worth it in the end.
Yeah.
But, I look at it and I just think, damn, dude, you missed out on your entire kid's life.
Yeah.
And like, for what? Like, we really couldn't engineer our way out of a blight situation. Like, really? Yeah. So that's why I wish that the narrative had given us a little bit more on the blight. What was it, man-made? Was it nature? Like,
solar
why
flares,
couldn't we engineer our way out of it? Because if they could do it back in the 40s or 50s or something, like, why couldn't we do it now with our, way better technology and understanding of how the world works? So I wish that there was a little bit more world building in that sense, just so that we could understand, okay, really there was no way out of this other than leaving.
Yeah. And I like that when we talk about how Murph receives the messages from Cooper, it's in the dust and it's in the books, right? So books as knowledge, dust as, if you want to say it's apocryphal or biblical judgment or whatever else, there's some level of that. Also, just like it's everywhere, it's also very like banal and like it's anywhere has dust. I like that it's that instead of Cooper sends back a magic bullet, like sends back, here's my coordinates, now everyone build another ship to fly out here. Like it's a little different. It's him through our higher selves, Tesseract. The power of love is so strong. She's able to recognize him and he to recognize her in the right way to send these messages, him knowing how smart she is. I do love that part.
Yeah. So now, having said all that, let's talk about why this movie's so good. Because as much as I have problems with it now, damn, this movie's good. It is so emotional. It is such like an emotional movie. And Christopher Nolan does such a good job, especially with Hans Zimmer's score, of just creating really emotional moments. I think one of the best emotional moments is when he leaves for the first time and he leaves Murph there and he's like trying to fix their relationship. Like, what a heartbreaking moment that is. And it's heartbreaking for a lot of reasons. Obviously, like, he's putting sacrifice and the valorization of the explorer archetype over a relationship with his kids.
Yeah.
But that is kind of we've all been there. I think maybe it was so important to me because when I freaking, was 2 years back from my mission at this point when I started, when I watched this movie. And damn it, if leaving on a mission wasn't the hardest thing I'd ever done. And, watching someone leave their loved one for the sake of something bigger than themselves really resonated with me.
Yeah. And it's interesting that he's emotional with his daughter, but there's still like a little bit of boundary there because he knows he has to go, just him, his personality. And the things he says, she holds near and dear and holds him to it. He's like, well, maybe when I come back, we'll be the same age. And although she doesn't really send him voice messages until way later, she remembers that and hates him for it when she's at the same age,
Yeah.
I think this movie, like we're talking about, the score is so perfectly placed around every scene, every moment. Matthew McConaughey acted his ass off.
Yeah,
of course, knowing the behind the scenes of, I in general in movies hate when we have to open a letter or get a phone call and someone's off screen or get a video message because I feel like it's kind of like cheesy storytelling. This time it's so perfect of him coming back off that planet. It's been so many years. You have 23 years of messages. Sit down, and knowing that Matthew McConaughey starved himself, sat away from people, came in and was like, Chris, you got one chance. We're doing this all in one take. That's kind of fun for behind the scenes filmmaking. And it does hit. It's just this moment where you're like, damn, that's a good actor. And you're just completely invested. You believe he's millions of miles away from Earth getting these messages. It really hits that emotional center.
That scene is brutal. I mean, I think what I do love about this movie, one of the things that I love about the movie is that it takes these like really high-minded scientific physics concepts like time dilation, and it puts a story to it, because like I understood that stuff. Like I've taken astronomy courses and I understood time dilation and, relativity, but to be able to show that kind of science through a narrative and a story is really powerful. I think one of the other aspects of that scene is when they're off of Miller's planet and Amelia sees Romley and she's like, why didn't you sleep? And he's like, well, I did for a little bit, but I didn't like the feeling of sleeping my life away. And she's like, I thought I understood it. I understood relativity intellectually, but she can't even express her like dismay. Yeah. It's so powerful. It's so good. And it kind of shows how weird the world is. Time slippage, like wormholes are theoretical. We don't actually know if those things are real.
Yeah.
Time dilation is very real. And what a weird part of the universe. Like it's so different than anything we would have predicted or created ourselves. And yet it's real. And to be able to show it in such a visceral way for, through your characters is just really, I think it's fantastic. It's so cool.
Yeah, all the time while watching it, I was like, okay, we get what's happening on the screen right now. What do we take away from it? And it is kind of like what's our time dilation? Or does love truly transcend time? I know at one point Dr. Brand is like, where's the physical utility in remembering someone after they've died? Or all these different things she brings up, right?
Yeah. I've got the whole quote written down.
Oh, let's do it. Let's hear it.
Because I think that one of the reasons this movie is a sacred text for so many people is because it takes seriously love as a feature of the universe and not a bug.
Yeah.
Right. Like it is something that, in Brand's language, she says, love isn't something we invented. It's, maybe it's some evidence or some artifact of a higher dimension that we can't consciously perceive. Love is the one thing we're capable of perceiving that transcends time and space. And then Coop is like, well, Amelia, that doesn't sound very scientific. And she's like, I know. And I'm the scientist. So listen to me. And
which we love.
I love that.
Yeah.
That whole scene, I think, is like one of the emotional core set pieces of the movie, because you get these scientists who are objective in their search for trying to save humanity in a room, grappling with the fact that the universe just rips something away from them, which is time. And Christopher Nolan in the narrative, he's like, no, love is a feature of the universe. It's not a bug. Brand says it isn't something that we invented. And, that's really true. I think that's true. It's beautiful. And I love that this movie takes love so seriously. And yeah, that's what I have to say.
I was going to say, kind of building off that, I love that there's a quote I wrote down from Cooper where he's like, time is relative, it can stretch, it can squeeze, and run backwards. Oh, sorry, time is relative, it can stretch, it can squeeze, but it can't run backwards. It just can't. The only thing that can move across dimensions like time is gravity. And then at the same time, Nolan is disproving that by saying love is just like that. Love is able to move across dimensions. Love is this power like the Tesseract. It's something that we don't understand. It's something that is truly bigger than what we're able to measure or can see in the brain, all these different things. And I find that this is the best type of storytelling for these big movies. It's not just space for space's sake. It's a simple yet complex human concept painted over a really technical or interesting or engaging story. It's the story of space travel, but really it's the story of love and a love of a father for his daughter and a love of humankind. Okay, that's what the real heart of the entire thing is, which is much better than like Ad Astra, which was good, in its own way for those who liked it. But it didn't have the same sticking power. And maybe that's why I don't love 2001 the same. I didn't grow up with it. It's mystical and weird and whatever, but it doesn't have the same core and emotional context that Interstellar does.
Yeah. And I mean, I honestly, it's great writing. It's great acting. Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway really bring it. They do such a good job at it. It's using these high-minded concepts in really grounded and accessible ways. Just like chef's kiss, fantastic. Yeah. And then, of course, then they make the rational decision instead of the decision to follow their hearts. They make the rational decision and they go to Dr. Man's planet, which is Matt Damon's planet. And they've already made a couple of Heart of Darkness references to a survivor gone mad, right? And I mean, Heart of Darkness, that should seed anyone's minds to think about the Heart of Darkness, the book. And we should expect to find a survivor who's gone mad, and that evil is the thing that we take with us. It's, we're going to face hardship, but evil is the thing that we're going to take with us. And then they're confronted with the cowardice of Dr. Mann, who cannot suffer the humiliation that the planet that he went to was not the planet that had life and was not livable for the human race. And so what he did was he falsified his data so that people would come get him.
Yeah.
Instead of him having to like sleep in cryosleep for centuries. And so this part of the movie goes to what it reveals is the different kind of cynicism in this kind of scientism cynicism of thinking that we need to transcend love, right? Because this is part of the movie where Dr. Brand, the old Dr. Brand, the Michael Caine Dr. Brand, dies. And he tells Murph, on Earth, they're like, oh, I lied. There's no such thing as solving the problem of gravity. There was no plan A. It's only been plan B. Everyone here on Earth is going to die. And then she relays that information through the time buoys or whatever to them on Dr. Mann's planet. And then Dr. Mann, Matt Damon's character, is like, yeah, well, we always knew this, because how are you supposed to get a bunch of people to work towards the collective salvation of humanity if they all just know they're going to die anyways? Yeah. And he's like, evolution is yet to transcend that one weakness, which is that we love we love each other. It is so, but at least what the narrative does is it puts this cynical thing in the mouth of the guy who's wrong.
And I love the casting for it, because I don't know about you, I've been careful not to watch too many trailers about it before I saw it. That was a big reveal to be like, oh, Matt Damon is Dr. Mann? The lovable Matt Damon.
In any trailer.
No.
This was a surprise cameo. And Matt Damon's good at those surprise cameos.
And you expect him to be smiley Matt Damon. You're like, oh, he's the good guy. Of course, Dr. Mann. And they continually refer to, Amelia Brand continually refers to him as the best of us. He was the best of us. He's just the best human you could possibly be. And then to have him be the coward who's telling Coop the last thing you're going to see when you die is, your children, all your memories of your children. And as he tries to crack his, helmet and tries to suffocate him, he's like, do you see them? Okay, Cooper, I'm leaving. I can't watch this anymore.
I can't actually watch you do this.
Horrible. Yeah. The nature of humanity. Where does faith and science intersect in his story versus the rest of the movie?
That's a great question, right? Because faith is hope in things that you don't believe. And I don't know, he's kind of a faithless coward who is kind of locked into this paradigm of human cynicism, right? Where he's like, oh, there's no way we could get the human race to work to save itself if they thought that that they were all going to die. Like, what a cynical take on human nature, right? Yeah. That Dr. Mann and Dr. Brand literally believed that people wouldn't be able to do the right thing when confronted with the situation. And so instead, we're going to lie to them all because we're superior, we're better, we've transcended that need. Like, that's a very cynical take. And so that's, you could call that faithless. You could call that, I've been calling it cynical. You could call it nihilistic, like whatever. It's really dark. But I think it's, it's true of a lot of kind of our postmodern world, that there's a level of scientism, of belief in science is the only thing. There's a nihilism in it that I don't think it's good medicine for the human heart. Like, it might build you a rocket ship, but like, you're going to take the problems of the human race wherever you go.
Yeah. Which I think is beautifully portrayed in this film, of the selfishness, the cowardice, and the cruelty that comes with self-preservation. And that, and having no faith in each other or humanity or nature or whatever else you want to say, it really just creates monsters of us, which Dr. Mann is kind of a good monster. Him setting up the other TARS to blow up, all the different things he set up, you're like, the lengths that he's going to just protect himself. And where does he see this going? Because where's he going to go? Back to Earth, like where everyone's going to die? Anyways.
Yeah, well, what is his plan? His plan is to try and be the hero somehow. Like, it's... Yeah. So here in that scene on Mann's planet, also, Christopher Nolan is so good at doing this cross-cutting editing where he's jumping between narratives, because you've got the narrative of Murph on Earth with her brother and the fire in the cornfield, and you've got Coop not bleeding out but losing oxygen on the surface of Mann's planet, and then you've got Romilly working on the robot, and you've got all these different scenes, and he's cross-cutting between them to build tension, and then the music serves to unify it all together. Damn, I love that shit so much. I love it. And Nolan does it in all of his movies. He does this cross-cutting thing, and I love it. I die for a cross-cut.
It really, it does such a good job of connecting everything and reminding you nothing happens in a vacuum.
And then it all leads into the docking scene. Now, I got to say...
No, go ahead.
I got to say, this is not PG porn. The docking scene, or the No Time for Caution scene, is exquisite filmmaking. It is so good. And what it does is, as a narrative, this scene serves a lot of purposes, but one of them is that it exists to show the difference between Cooper and Dr. Mann. So what happens is you get Dr. Mann, who takes the, the ship up to the Endurance, which is their space station with all their embryos and all the stuff that's on it. And he's trying to dock with the ship. And one of the robots had shut down the AI protocol for being able to dock. And so he can't automatically dock the ship. The Endurance won't let him. And he's trying anyway. So he's trying. And, Cooper and Dr. Brand are trying to talk to him, be like, hey, you don't do this. Don't do this. You're going to break. There's danger. But then Dr. Mann is just like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it anyways because I'm better than everyone and I can just get it done. And then disaster. He opens the airlock, it breaks, it blows apart, and then it sends the Endurance spinning in space. And you're just like, oh no. And oh my gosh, just the use of silence, of reaction shots, and just a little tiny violin in the background just goes to underscore how intense this situation is going to be. So Dr. Mann dead, right? Because he couldn't do what was necessary. What was necessary for him on his planet was to die.
Yeah.
That was his thing. And he couldn't do it. He was a coward and he couldn't do what was necessary. But then you get Cooper, who sees this impossible situation, and he just immediately goes into action mode. And he's like, okay, TARS, analyze the Endurance's spin. And the robot's like, hey, it's not worth using our gas to go in there. And Coop just starts moving in and then line us up so that we can, or no, the robot's like, it's not possible. And Coop says, but it's necessary. And that's just one of my absolute favorite moments of cinema ever. It's not possible. It's necessary. Which is what a fantastic thing.
Kind of the thesis of the whole movie, right?
Yeah.
The whole question is, what does it mean to sacrifice yourself for a future you'll never see? I know that's a great line in Andor too, but it's this idea of it's impossible to find on the planet. It's impossible. But it's necessary. And I think it's better shown in this scene than other parts. And if we're just talking about CGI or practical or just special effects, I love that you sent me that Lego redo of this because that was beautiful. But it just masterclass cinema. We're already watching it 10 years past with eyes wide open. And oh my gosh, it's beautiful. In 30, 40, 50 years, this will still be watched with the same awe of how the hell did they do that so well?
Yeah. Ultimately, I think this movie is about love and connection and how those things transcend the limits of what we know. And that is why it's my sacred text. Why don't we talked about the Enneagram on the show?
We've brought it a few times, but continue.
So anyway, I'm an Enneagram 9. And for 9s, our core fear is the loss of connection and annihilation. And so that's really core to who I am. To lose relationship, to lose connection is existentially terrifying for me. That's hard unless an audience member is Enneagram 9. You might not get that. But what I love about this movie so much is that it shows that love and connection transcend the things that we think would otherwise break them, and that you will always be in connection with the people that you love, even if you are light years away, or even if time and death separate you. If you go through a black hole, whatever.
Yeah.
Love and connection transcend time and space. And that is so important to me as a person. It's just one of my spiritual core needs. And I will say that as an aside, there's something deeply Mormon about this movie. And maybe that is to say there's something deeply human about this movie in the need to include our ancestors in our future salvation. Plan B was to cut ourselves off from our present and our past and only think about a future. But plan A was the only real and possible goal, because Cooper is high-centered and fixated on everyone on Earth needs to be included on this, or else it's not a real plan. And I love that aspect of a story because I grew up Mormon, and there is no salvation without our ancestors, without the dead. But that is such a powerful motif, a storytelling element, especially when we think about climate change, that there is no solution to climate change unless it includes all of us, rich and poor, and white or black or whatever. The solution needs to include all of us. And I think that's a deeply human and beautiful way to frame the story.
It makes me wonder, and maybe you have an idea, as Nolan and others had watched 2001 and these other sci-fi movies and then wrote what they wrote, what will the next two generations do with Interstellar? They will have watched this. What's the story to be told in 40 years? Is it saving the planet instead? Is it building the most intense scientific things or bringing something from space to come back to Earth to fix it? It makes me wonder, what's it going to look like in 30 years?
That's a good question. What's the next space odyssey, in 3 decades or so?
Yeah.
Because, boy, I don't even know what the world's going to look like in 3 decades or so.
Yeah. For people like us, there's a lot of things happening right now where this is regressive and bad and terrible. For others, they see it as a celebration of their own values or what they find important. But yeah, I think it will be interesting to know if drill baby drill is the prevailing theory for the next 15 years. What does it look like in 30 years?
It'll look like baby warming.
I mean, having watched Don't Look Up last year? That was pretty depressing and horrifying to watch.
Dude, I had a panic attack. I literally had a panic attack watching that movie because it was too close to home. I was working in an environmental nonprofit at the time, and dude, that was a hard movie for me to watch. And I was dating a therapist at the time, and I remember talking to her afterwards about this weird physiological event that happened while I was watching this movie where I thought my heart was going to stop beating, and I literally had to catch my breath. She was like, "Madison, that was a panic attack." I was like, "What? I don't have panic attacks." I did.
Yeah, I know what my story is. It's the opposite of the Elon Musk plan. This is the place we want to be, not anywhere else. We're not trying to go. I don't want to leave.
We have to go back.
As a space boy who loved Star Wars and Apollo 13, and I had a grandpa that worked for JPL, so he was building rockets. He built rockets that took the Cassini out to Saturn and the Mars rover. He was an engineer and all this stuff. I was so sure as a child I was leaving the planet to go to space and be on a space station. And I'm so sure now that this is what's important. And maybe that's why I'm watching Interstellar. The idea of presentism is much more enticing for my human story and what I see in humanity than conquest in the stars, which I know is important, and there will be the people that do it. But I think it's funny that we do immortalize, like you're saying, Columbus or Pizarro or Magellan, but we don't talk about all the people back home still living life.
So this is a tangent. This is going to be a long one, but I remember reading, I think it was a Scientific American article, because if it does feel like the human spirit is caught between these two poles of a caretaking versus exploring, of being a hobbit versus being like, I don't know, like a ranger or something.
Yeah.
And I remember reading the Scientific American article about evolution and about how Homo sapien, what we are, because prior to Homo sapiens being the only species of human on the planet, at one point, there were a lot of species of human on the planet. There was Homo neanderthalis, Homo erectus. There was a lot of different cousin species, I guess.
Yeah.
I could only imagine the racism that would exist today if they were still around.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But it talked about the insanity that exists in Homo sapiens that clearly didn't exist in the other human species. Because what you find is like Neanderthals or some of these pygmy humans that lived in kind of Indonesia or in Asia. What you find is that those other human species didn't really expand much. They just kind of stayed where they were. And then as soon as Homo sapien comes along in Africa, they explode out onto the scene and they just colonize the entire planet. And you can see this in like the fossil record and the archaeological record, that they just push into all these other human species territories and essentially outbreed them. And this even includes not just continents, right? Like
islands,
but it includes islands.
Yeah.
And